Hi, it's Rosa Collado with Keller Williams. So you got an accepted offer in your home. That's great. But do you know what happens next? Make sure you watch the entire video where I go into detail and step by step of what happens once you get an accepted offer in your home. So one of the first things that happens is that normally a buyer will go ahead and order an inspection. Now, when I say normally, the reality is that 8 out of 10 buyers actually order an inspection. Now, an inspection is something that is not mandatory. Once the buyer hires this inspector, they'll come in, they'll inspect the entire home to make sure that the home is up to standards. Once they check the entire home, the inspector does a report. Now, in that report, there's going to be a lot of information about your house. There might be some things that a buyer will go ahead and tell their realtor, hey, you know what? I need the homeowner to change that. So this is why it's important that you hire an agent like myself that is going to fight for you, especially when inspection comes in, because there are times that an inspection is used to, again, negotiate the price. Right? There might be some issues that come up that a buyer might want you to fix or might want credit. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So the seller's attorney is the one that creates the contract. The seller attorney in that contract will write the price, terms and condition, and normally will write that it's going to take about 60 days unless it's a cash deal. So once that contract is sent over to the buyer's attorney is going to review everything that's in the contract along with the inspection report. So again, this inspection report might come up not only once, but it might come out twice. So after the buyer goes in, agrees to everything that's in the contract, then the contract, along with a security deposit that can be sometimes $10,000, could be 10% or even 20%. That contract, along with that check, is sent over to your attorney. Now, your attorney will go ahead and schedule a time to meet with you. You can either go to their office. Sometimes right now, because of COVID, we're still in a pandemic here. Video was done in November 18, 2020. So we're still in a pandemic. So most of the time, a lot of my sellers are actually going to are actually doing an e-signature with the attorney. Sometimes they're doing Zoom meetings and they go over everything that's in the contract. Sometimes they're just talking over the phone and you sign the contract virtually. So that executed contract gets sent over to the bank. Now, the reason why it gets sent over to the bank is because now the bank is going to order an appraisal. So the appraisal is something that's done by the bank and it's usually done by a third party. So what this appraisal person does is that they go in, they look at the home, and they also compare other homes that actually sold in the area. Now, I do have a video explaining the difference between appraisal and inspection and the importance of both. So make sure that you watch that video. I do have a link below in case you want to watch that video. Great. So an appraisal gets done. Let's now say that the appraisal went great and everything went well. So after the appraisal gets done, then an order for a title. Now, a title gets ordered by the buyer's attorney and is also paid by the buyer. Now, in this title, what is done is that they do a title search. They make sure that there's no liens on the property. They make sure that you are actually the owner of the property. And they make sure that it is free and clear of any violations or anything that is associated with that property for the new buyer. Now, a survey is actually it's another company that also the buyer pays for. And this is to measure the entire property land. So it's to make sure that your neighbor is not encroaching on your property and taking maybe a foot or 2 feet or 5 feet over your property, or that you're not doing the same for another property. So that is a survey, and that's why it's important to do that, because you want to make sure that nobody's stealing your land and you're not stealing anyone's land. So after the bank gets the appraisal, then you get a commitment letter, and that commitment letter is basically stating that the bank is actually going to be committed to the buyer to lend that buyer X amount of money to purchase your property. So you got the bank giving a clear to close, you have the title clear, and the third thing is that you have that survey. So once you have those 3 things done, what happens next? Now we can actually say that you are one step closer to closing. After all this is done and you are clear, you normally scheduled a walkthrough with your realtor. You as a seller, you want to make sure that everything's up to standard. You want to make sure the house is empty. You want to make sure that whatever you agree you're going to fix, that it is fixed. And you want to make sure this house is clean, because I will tell you that when you go to the closing table and there are things that you agree that were going to be done and are not done, at that closing table, they're going to look for money, and that money is going to come out of your pocket because you agreed on something and it didn't come through. So you want to make sure that everything that you'd agreed upon, it is done. I normally say to do a walkthrough 1 or 2 days before the closing date. The reason why I say that is because this gives you an opportunity that if there's anything wrong with the house or anything that the buyer saw that they didn't like, it gives you the opportunity to correct it and fix it before you go to closing. Because I will tell you, there have been times when there is I had a client where we had a couple of things in the backyard. It was not a lot. And the buyer went to the closing table and said that there was a lot of things that needed to be fixed and that it was going to cost $500 to get rid of all the trash. Good thing is, me as a realtor, while we were at closing, we went ahead, we cleared everything out, we took pictures, we showed it at the closing that we were good, and we were fine to close, and the owner did not have to pay $500 for something that really was only going to cost $20, $30. So again, guys, if you have any questions or if you want to know more about selling your home or about buying a house, make sure you give me a call at 917-833-0582. Comment below. And if there's any specific video that you want me to do, please make sure you comment below. I'll talk to you guys soon.